This is a recording about the Shirley Valentine task. So it's really important that you listen carefully. It's what I call traps for young players, or what Fran used to call traps for young players. And it's the sort of hints that I want you to make sure that you are aware of before we then move on to other things. First of all, it's the 3 parts, and we've got the task sheet and the guidelines. I'll look at that in a second, but let's have a look at the task sheet. If we look at the task sheet here, the first part of it is very clear. What you are doing, it says Willie Russell chooses to lead the audience to decide the outcome of the meeting between Joe and Shirley. So at the end of Act 2, Scene 1, where Shirley is seated by the ocean with a glass of wine, drinking it in the country where the grape was grown, awaiting Joe, and she's saying to herself, what's going to happen? Well, Act 2, Scene 2 is your job to say what happened. So you have to decide what happened to Shirley, what happened to Joe. I would strongly recommend against you talking about Joe arriving and Shirley falling madly in love with him and everything's over and done with. What you've got to remember is this woman is 42 years old. She's been married to this man for all this time, and it has taken her this time to escape. Would she immediately go back to being Shirley Bradshaw? If you want to do that, you need to be able to explain why. You will need to know, where is she? How much time has elapsed? Don't go much more than 3 months. There's a lot to talk about in a scene with things happening in 3 months. You'll notice that Act 1, Scene 2 is 3 weeks later. And if you look at Act 2, Scene 1, she talks about how long she has been there. So it's very important that you do realise what the play is about before you start thinking about it. Did Joe arrive? If so, what happened? If not, why not? So did Joe turn up? We're not sure at the end of the play whether he actually turns up. So did he? And how have you chosen to resolve the relationship issues? I've had all sorts of suggestions on how that would happen, including Shirley becoming Marjorie Major's booking agent. I've seen it. It's quite fun. But how have you chosen to resolve the relationship? 100-word synopsis. We then come to the extract. Now it's a 400 to 500-word extract from Act 2, Scene 2, not a whole scene. Do not attempt to write the whole scene. You write a part of it. You may choose to write the beginning, where Shirley says, well, and you have to decide also what she's talking to. She can't talk to the wall. Is she still talking to the rock? Where is she? What happened? If you do the beginning of Act 2, Scene 2, then you can do quite a bit of explaining of what happened when Joe came and what she's been doing. And you can also show your talents in writing the stage directions, because they're very specific as well. And notice it says in the same style as the playwright. This fulfills the performance standard of doing that. Your monologue should show that you can write in the monologue form, that you understand what Willie Russell is doing. Conventions, language techniques and strategies. Strategies such as the reoccurring themes, the jumping off the roof. You don't have to do these, but the jumping off the roof, the wine in the country where the grape is grown. She's always saying, wall, don't you, wall? She repeats herself. Continue the plot line to show your understanding of the ideas and themes in the original text. And that's what I'm saying. It is doubtful. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it is doubtful that a reconciliation happens immediately. Remember, she is not young, she is 42. Continue the tone of the play and to show your understanding. If you look at the play, it actually goes up and down in sequence. She's up and then she's down and then she's up and then she's down. Act 2, Scene 2, she's pretty up most of the time. So maybe it can continue that way. And use some of the typical language features from the original text to show your understanding. The third part to this is the writer's statement. And the writer's statement you do here is practice for the writer's statement you're doing for your folios. So what it says is it should show your ability to reflect on and explain your creative decisions using integrated quotations from your text. When Marg was here, my class, you were taught how to do integrated quotations for your Divine Wind essay. Say what you said in your extract and explain why you said it. If you dropped the Y at the end of the G at the end of a word, why did you do that? To be consistent with Willie Russell's style, I dropped the G off the words ending in ing. So it became standin' rather than standing, and walkin' rather than walking. Show an understanding of the theme, ideas, experiences, values and beliefs the playwright explores. You've got to have some kind of repetition of the themes. And in all sections you should carefully proofread to accuracy, fluency and clarity. I'm warning you, the middle section drives your spell checker crazy. So 3 parts. The synopsis is written at about 100 words. The monologue, the play is a monologue and 400 to 500, and the playwright statement 400 to 500. Don't have it under 400. Part of the outcome of this is to show your ability to explain your understanding of the text, and 400 words is really not enough, but that's all you've got to play with. So don't blow out any of the others to shorten the writer's statement. The writer's statement is 400 to 500 words because we very much believe that it is an important part. Yeah, these guidelines for writing the play script are to be followed. Look at those. We have suggested that you do not use new characters. Use the existing characters, and here they are here. If you do use a new character, for example, I've had times when my students have had Shirley meet somebody in Greece and go off somewhere, usually an Australian, because they know that wine is grown in Australia, then that's okay, but try and keep it down. Here are some of the language features that she uses, so worthwhile looking at that. And the guidelines for writing the reflection. These are the old days. Writer's statement, reflection. Have a look at those and ask them. But this is important. At all times, use quotations from your own script as evidence. You've got to quote. You are the playwright. You have to quote. You will notice on the Moodle site that there are some exemplars. The first one has her in a cemetery, and a bleak rainy day suggests it's back in England, and we have Joe's headstone, and she explains what happens and why she is back in Liverpool. The second one, she is still in Greece, and she tells what happens. So the person writing it tells what happens. But this is an example of what I mean about referring back to things that happen in the original play. But as he got closer and I saw his face, I lost all sense of self-doubt. He looked more lost and helpless than the poor little innkeeper in Brian's nativity play. So referring to something that happened in Act 1, Scene 1. She has got, in this one, she has fallen in love with Costas. I'm not too keen on it, but it is 3 months later, and maybe there is a possibility, but I still believe that Costas and her would not actually get together. There's another one where Joe decides to stay. All sorts of different ideas that are here and well worth having a look at. For some reason, one of my students a few years ago decided to decided to make it really all sad and everything went wrong, and for some reason one of them is desperately ill. So there's a bit here that can't be true. I flew home and left Jane swanning about in Greece. Jane left Greece before the end of Act 2, Scene 1. He was ill, and she left Greece and came home. We'll see. We'll see. So it's really worthwhile having a look at the exemplars. This final exemplar is not the same task as you have. In the old days, they used to write the whole of the Act 2, Scene 2. However, it gives you an example of a student writing their personal reflection, and well worth having a look. So remember, be really careful with what you do with this. Try and keep it as true to the original as possible and enjoy it.